Dopaminergic means related to dopamine, dopamine being a common neurotransmitter. Dopaminergic substances or actions increase dopamine-related activity in the brain. Dopaminergic brain structures facilitate dopamine-related activity. For example, certain proteins such as the dopamine transporter, vesicular monoamine transporter 2, and dopamine receptors can be classified as dopaminergic, and neurons that synthesize or contain dopamine and synapses with dopamine receptors in them may also be labeled as dopaminergic. Enzymes that regulate the biosynthesis or metabolism of dopamine such as aromatic L-amino acid decarboxylase or dopa-decarboxylase, monoamine oxidase, and catechol-O-methyl transferase may be referred to as dopaminergic as well. Also, any endogenous or exogenous chemical substance that acts to affect dopamine receptors or dopamine release through indirect actions can also be said to have dopaminergic effects. Two prominent examples being opioids, which enhance dopamine release indirectly in the reward pathways, and some substituted amphetamines, which enhance dopamine release directly by binding to an inhibiting VMAT2. Supplements and drugs. The following are examples of dopaminergic substances. Precursors. Dopamine precursors including L-phenylalanine and L-tyrosine are used as dietary supplements. L-dopa, another precursor, is used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease. Receptor agonists. Dopamine receptor agonists such as apomorphine, bromocriptine, cabergoline, dihydroxidine, dopamine, phenyldopam, pyribedyl, lyseride, pergolide, pramipexole, ropinirole, and rotigotine, are used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease, restless legs syndrome, hyperprolactinemia, and sexual dysfunction, as well as being investigated in the treatment of depression and anxiety as antidepressants and anxiolytics, respectively. Receptor antagonists. Receptor blockers. Dopamine receptor antagonists including typical antipsychotics such as chlorpromazine, fluphenazine, haloperidol, loxapine, molindone, perfenazine, pimozide, thioridazine, thiothiazine, and trifluoperazine. The atypical antipsychotics such as amisulpride, clozapine, olanzapine, quetiapine, risperidone, sulpiride, and ziprasidone, and antiemetics like domperidone, metoclopramide, and prochlorperazine, among others, which are used in the treatment of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder as antipsychotics, and nausea and vomiting. Reuptake inhibitors, transporter blockers. Dopamine reuptake inhibitors or dopamine transporter inhibitors such as methylphenidate, bupropion, ammoneptine, and nomifenzina, cocaine, methylene deoxypyrovalerone, ketamine, and phencyclidine, among others, which are used in the treatment of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and narcolepsy as psychostimulants, obesity as anorectics, depression and anxiety as antidepressants and anxiolytics, respectively, drug addiction as anti-craving agents, and sexual dysfunction, as well as illicit street drugs. Vesicular monoamine transporter 2 inhibitors such as risperidone, tetrabenazine, and dazerpidine, which are used as sympatholytics or antihypertensives, and in the past as antipsychotics. Releasing agents. Dopamine-releasing agents such as amphetamine, lisdexamfetamine, methamphetamine, methylene deoxymethamphetamine, phenmetrazine, pemaline, 4-methylaminorex, and benzylpiperazine, among many others, which, like DRIs, are used in the treatment of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and narcolepsy as psychostimulants, obesity as anorectics, depression and anxiety as antidepressants and anxiolytics, respectively, drug addiction as anti-craving agents, and sexual dysfunction, as well as illicit street drugs. Activity enhancers. Dopamine activity enhancers, such as BPAP and PPAP, which are currently only research chemicals, but are being investigated for clinical development in the treatment of a number of medical disorders. Monoamine oxidase inhibitors. Monoamine oxidase inhibitors, including non-selective agents such as phenelzine, tranylcypromine, and isocarboxazide. MAOA selective agents like meclobamide, and MAOB selective agents such as selegiline, rasagiline, and pargaline, as well as the harmala alkaloids like harmina, harmaline, tetrahydroharmina, harmalol, harman, and norharman, which are found to varying degrees in Nicotiana tabacum, Banisteriopsis caapi, Peganum harmala, Passiflora incarnata, and Tribulus terrestris, among others, which are used in the treatment of depression and anxiety as antidepressants and anxiolytics, respectively, in the treatment of Parkinson's disease and dementia, and for the recreational purpose of boosting the effects of certain drugs like phenethylamine and psychedelics like dimethyltryptamine via inhibiting their metabolism. Other enzyme inhibitors, catechol-O-methyl transferase inhibitors such as entacapone and tolcapone, which are used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease. Dopamine beta-hydroxylase inhibitors like disulfiram, which can be used in the treatment of addiction to cocaine and similar dopaminergic drugs as a deterrent drug. The excess dopamine resulting from inhibition of the dopamine beta-hydroxylase enzyme increases unpleasant symptoms such as anxiety, higher blood pressure, and restlessness. Disulfiram is not an anti-craving agent, because it does not decrease craving for drugs. Instead, positive punishment from its unpleasant effects deters drug consumption. Phenylalanine hydroxylase inhibitors like 3,4-dihydroxystyrene, which is currently only a research chemical with no suitable therapeutic indications, likely because such drugs would induce the potentially highly dangerous hyperphenylalaninemia or phenylketonuria. Tyrosine hydroxylase inhibitors like metirosina, which is used in the treatment of pheochromocytoma as a sympatholytic or antihypertensive agent. Aromatic amino acid decarboxylase or dopa decarboxylase inhibitors including benserazide, carbidopa, and methyl-dopa, which are used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease in augmentation of L-dopa to block the peripheral conversion of dopamine, thereby inhibiting undesirable side effects, and as sympatholytic or antihypertensive agents. Others such as hyperforin and adhyperforin, L-theanine, and S-adenosine L-methionine, which are all dietary supplements used mainly for the remedication of depression and anxiety as antidepressants and anxiolytics, respectively.